Okay, we're recording. I'm going to go ahead and call the agenda session to order. Number one thank you all for coming, by the way. Number one on the agenda session is the Civil Rights Commission Nominating Committee report. Number two, quarterly financial report, third quarter 2015, Paul Becker, Chief Financial Officer. Those will be presentations, reports, and discussion items. On the consent agenda, number one, approval of the October 6, 2015 and October 20th, 2015 City Council meeting minutes. Number two, a resolution to award bid number 15-53 and to authorize the purchase of a Ford F-350 with reading utility body and Tiger crane from Lewis Ford Sales Incorporated of Fayetteville in the amount of $55,006.38 for use by the Water and Sewer Operations Division. Has this been through the Equipment Committee?
Yes.
Any comments or questions?
None.
Okay. Okay, number three, a resolution to award bid number 15-54 and to authorize the purchase of a Ford F-250 with reading utility body from Lewis Ford Sales Incorporated of Fayetteville in the amount of $32,978.38 for use by the Parks and Recreation Department. Any comments or questions on that? All right, number four, resolution to amend resolution number 18115 concerning the purchase of a rotary lift system pursuant to a National Joint Powers Alliance purchasing agreement for use by Fleet Division. Comments or questions on that? All right, number five, a resolution to award bid number 15-57 and authorize a contract with Austin King Incorporated, DBA King Electrical Contractors Incorporated, for electrical services on an on-call basis for a period of 1 year with an automatic option to renew for 4 additional years. Any comments or questions on it? Yes, John?
What are we buying there, Mayor? Do we know?
Yeah, I kind of do. This is something that, who's got that? But I can kind of give you a little.
It's electrical services, basically.
It's electrical services that we've used for years around here, John. Actually, I had questions about that when I was on the council, but it is a...
each year we bid certain services in case we have a need. Yeah. We get an architect list, we get a list of engineers, and then do selections based on the use of that. So electrical services, they are bidded for this. Should we have a need to provide electrical services for the city, then we would already have the contract item done for this provider. And then they price that particular project, and we do the work.
It's a lot more.
So it's a company we just use all the time, pretty much.
Okay. When I dig down into the details of this item, I come up with a number of $195,000. Is that per annum?
I don't know.
Well, basically it's as needed, so it can be as much as zero, I think. As little as zero, I should say.
So,
isn't that right? I mean, it's as needed?
Yeah, John, we'll get you something.
That's made for trail lighting, building.
Maybe you're looking at the next one. You're looking at the next one.
Yeah, I haven't read that yet, John, but all right. Hang on, we'll do that one too. Resolution to authorize the contract King Electrical Contractors in the amount of $66,240 pursuant to a bid number 15-57 for the installation of LED trail light fixtures and light poles along the town branch trail from Great House Park to Hollywood Avenue, and to approve the project contingency in the amount of $6,600. Where are you getting the $195 though? I'm just curious.
it was the first, hang on, King. This is A5, the consent agenda, for electrical service on on-call basis. And when you click on the PDF,
Okay.
you go through there.
It's an estimated amount.
Estimated amount. Okay,
We
so,
don't really know exactly.
but how can he estimate if he doesn't know what the projects are yet?
Because he's worked for us for many years, and so they know what generally we need throughout the year.
This contract is based on percentages of overhead that they mark up. So they'll provide the proposal to us, and it's a set percentage of markup, essentially. And they were the lowest bidder of that markup amount.
Of the markup amount?
Mm-hmm. So
Okay.
each project individual, they have to charge that
So,
amount, so we check and make sure.
Is it in the nature of a cost-plus contract? Like, he has the smallest markup, but the more he spends, the more money he makes. Because his markup is on a bigger number he's multiplying by, even though it's a smaller markup. I'll take a 0.5% interest if I can invest $1 trillion, or 10 trillion, or 100 trillion.
He can only do the work that we ask him to do, though.
Okay. But you see the danger in spending money this way, it basically takes on the nature of a cost-plus contract. So the more money he spends, the more money he makes. So maybe he won't shop around, or he doesn't have the incentive to shop around to get the best price on a wing nut or a wire nut or, you know, whatever he's buying in materials, because he makes more money if he spends 20% more on his materials. See, that's a dangerous kind of arrangement. I'd rather competitive bidding on give me the rock bottom price. I wouldn't do this in my business, okay? So I'm not sure I'd want the city to do it in their business.
We've used it in the past many years, and it's been very fair, and we check the invoices and make sure it's just that hourly rate.
Then some crazy CPA gets elected to city council and questions it all.
I can tell you based on bidding of other lighting, it's a very good value.
Very good value.
And we probably, if we separated it all out every time we needed a project, and we had to bid it out every time, not only would it take a lot of time and staff time to do that, but probably we wouldn't get as good a bid, because here we're getting bids because people know there's a lot of money involved, and there it's a small project, and so they wouldn't be as interested. Isn't that one of the reasons that we do this on an annual basis?
Kind of the value of scale.
You want to pull it off, John, and discuss it at the council meeting?
Well, yes, let's pull it off.
All right.
Well, that'll give me time to look into it.
Sure.
Pull both of them, 5 and 6.
Yes, we need to pull the next one.
Yeah, we can't.
I'm sorry, I read
6 is dependent upon 5.
Yeah.
Okay, pull both.
Okay. All right. Number 7, a resolution to approve a contract with Boyette Strategic Advisors in the amount of not to exceed $89,210 to facilitate and prepare an update to the city's economic development strategic plan and to approve a budget adjustment. Jeremy.
The mayor has called several input sessions over the last few months with council members, and also had some focus groups. And out of those, there's a desire for the city to update its strategic plan as it relates to economic development. The city's economic development goals, our focus areas, and our target industries are currently driven largely by strategic plan objectives that were created in 2008 and 2009 when there were 2 studies performed for Fayetteville related to our economic development strategies. In 2008, we had the Eva Klein and Associates study that produced a strategic framework, and that was commissioned as a joint project between the university and city. That project specifically was conducted on the precipice of an economic recession, was directly in response to falling revenue, development and housing issues, and a national economy in turmoil. In 2009, when Mayor Jordan came aboard, he led a collaborative visioning process facilitated by Bliss Brown of Imagine Chicago. It's called Fayetteville Forward. And that process focused on a variety of topics around which the city and volunteers could spur eventual action in target areas such as transportation, local foods, a creative economy, public education, job growth, and so forth. Out of that process, the Chamber of Commerce was selected through a bid process in 2009 to perform our economic development consulting services, and those services are still being provided today. The mayor went through an RFP process, and after shortlisting and interviewing candidates, the selection committee has recommended Boyette Strategic Advisors to facilitate and prepare an update to our economic development strategic plan. Boyette brings a wealth of knowledge in this arena. They have an office located here in Arkansas. They're familiar with state laws. Mr. Boyette, in particular, has experience with the Arkansas Economic Development Commission. And we believe their experience and their client list will bring a fresh perspective to Fayetteville. Boyette's also recently worked with Fayetteville, providing economic development services, and they have close familiarity with Northwest Arkansas's economic climate. This contract was not to exceed $89,210, and it's drawn from the proceeds of the Wilson Springs and Tyson property sales. It's a 5-month contract with the final presentation projected to be held in April of 2016 with multiple check-ins along the way through meetings with you all as council members. Out of this plan, if you look through the scope of services, we expect a clear implementation strategy and priorities based on the goals that we establish through the process, and it will enable the city to make informed decisions relative to our investments in economic development.
What questions we got?
I've got one.
Sure.
It's scheduled to conclude in April. We'll be able to know early enough in our process of developing a new contract for an outside scope how that should look?
That's the plan. So we asked them to include basically a midterm type presentation so that we have ability to understand some of the strategic planning objectives going forward, and then we can start working on that framework of a consulting service. Part of their charge is to evaluate the structure of the economic development delivery model, and so that will also hopefully have a midpoint type a recommendation on which way to go from there.
Okay, thanks.
John?
Jeremy, how many people do they have working on the project? We're talking about a 5-month contract?
Yes, sir.
So how many, like, are they putting a staff of 20 people to work on this, or 5 people, or 10 people, or 2
I think their full staff office is 5 people, I believe. Yep.
5 to 7? So they'll all be working on this project?
In different capacities. There is, I believe, a schedule of the workload listed within the agenda item.
Okay, so for $89,000 and change, we get a printed report from them saying you should do this, you shouldn't do that?
Actually, if you refer to the contract, what we get is, let's go through these. Section A, they'll do a review and assessment of the Fayetteville economy, its demographics, and evolution over time with a focus on our local employment, quality of life, and economic strengths, basically a SWOT analysis. They will also benchmark our current economic development strengths and weaknesses against both the state of Arkansas and other high-performing cities. So essentially they'll take benchmark and peer cities around the country that we identified through this process and through your input, and benchmark where we are performing relative to those cities, because we are in competition not just within our region but through cities nationally for economic development dollars. They'll also assist the City Council in redefining target businesses, so where we want to bring businesses and invest in projects, employment, things of that nature coming into the city, identifying target sector focus areas and sector trends. Of course, the plan, the specific written document that you refer to, we will definitely want to have a strategic economic development plan with clear strategies and implementation steps.
Jeremy, what would happen if we didn't spend this money, if we didn't hire this group? How much worse off would we be? Would we be just dangling out there in cyberspace somewhere and not know what to do?
I think eventually we would begin to lose on investment in our city. That's my opinion.
And the input session from the city council members, John, but you weren't there, they talked about getting someone in here to develop an economic plan, the ones that were here. So we take it back, say, okay, we'll look at who does economic plans, much like Bliss Brown did in 2009. But again, it's going to be up to you council members. If y'all don't want to spend the $89,000 to do an economic development plan, well, so be it.
Okay.
Pull it off, put it on new business, let's
Yeah, let's
vote.
be consecutive. We'll pull 5, 6, and 7.
Okay,
Pull it off.
all right. Moving on to new business. Number 1, a resolution to approve change order number A to the contract with Croston Construction Company Incorporated in the amount of $715,453 to add a 4th baseball field and lighting for the soccer complex at Regional Park, to approve an additional project contingency in the amount of $9,547, and to approve a budget adjustment. Allison?
Thank you. As you all know, we are currently constructing the first phase of the regional park. When that project was bid and the bids came in, we went through a value engineering process and had to eliminate and alter some of the items that were originally included. This change order is requesting to add 2 of those back in. One is the 4th baseball field and the lights for the soccer, to help us build a more complete phase 1 of the project. We feel like this will help better accommodate our current soccer program, extend the hours of play, and then with the 4th baseball field, be able to use that more efficiently while we're there. Along with this, we are requesting approval of a budget adjustment that will recognize funds through the Parks Development Fund reserves and parkland dedication that has become available since we originally bid the project. We don't anticipate this adding any additional time. We're still on schedule and see that this will be opening up in the fall of 2016.
I want to add a couple of things. Alderman Tennant, when we were going through this initial approval, asked for the administration to look and see if there was any way to find the funding for the lighting of the fields, both for an economic development, bidding perspective for tournaments, but as well as economic play for the city. and we committed to do that in the 2016 CIP plan, if you'll remember at that time. And I'll let Paul speak to the actual reason we're able to bring it forward now, but the primary reason that we looked prior to 2016 is our contract pricing is firm through November the 22nd.
That's right, yep.
And if we wait until 16, then our pricing could go up, and so we want to lock it in at this particular pricing. Paul can speak to the collections and why we do it.
I'll just make a couple of comments. If you remember when we brought this forward, we had wanted to do the lights at that point in time, and we had certainly wanted to have a fourth baseball field out at the regional park. However, at that point in time, didn't feel comfortable that we had a funding plan in place that I felt was reliable enough to go forward. However, at that time, I also said I believed that we would be able to fund at least the lights next year. However, right now, we have funding enough to go forward with this. We've got some additional receipts in the HMR funds, which is one of the primary places we're paying for this. In addition, we got a reimbursement from Gully Park that we hadn't anticipated getting back until 2016, 2017, and due to development down in the parkland dedication fees down in that sector, we generated an additional $170,000 that we could put into the regional park. So it was always anticipated we'd get this in the regional park when we have the funding. I feel at this point in time we have the funding plan in place that we can move forward with it. So that's why we're really happy to come forward at this point in time. Now, we're coming now rather than waiting to the 16 budget so we can get the contract underway and not have to wait till next summer before we would even get started.
What questions do we have? Okay.
I think it's great news. I'm happy
Yes.
to see
Yep.
it.
Yes.
We,
The more we can get done, the better.
yes, we can do that clover leaf down there, which will be an attraction and bringing some tournaments. Okay, number 2, a resolution to reject the recommendation of the urban forester who determined that the tree preservation mitigation areas and easements and dedications agreed to and signed by the owner developer on June 25th, 2014 should not be vacated or changed by a new development proposal for the acreage.
And before the urban forester talks about this, I drafted the resolution in such a way that it would actually reject the city's position, because it's an appeal, and so the burden is upon them to get 5 affirmative votes
I
to
see.
pass the resolution.
I see. I wondered how
So
that.
that's, it's not like the city is saying we need to reject your advice. That is not correct, but the burden is upon them. It's just like if somebody has their rezoning request recommended denial by the planning commission. If you remember, when we read an ordinance rezoning, it's always to rezone, because they have the burden of, in fact, carrying 5 affirmative votes in order to be successful, and the same thing will be in this case.
Thank you, Kit. Thanks, Mayor, for this opportunity. An applicant for Crane Auto has requested to vacate a portion of a recently established tree preservation area. It was established in 2014. A tree preservation area is a geographic extent of land that's similar setup on a plat for approved development plans for large-scale developments or commercial final plats, with the purpose of long-term preservation of significant trees, much like other purposes of other, set up for a specific purpose, just like other easements are set up for these specific purposes. It's the urban forester's responsibility to bring this request to council, any request for a modification of one of these areas, and it's the applicant's opportunity to bring to you a proposal that you find satisfactory, that you find that is in the best interest of the city of Fayetteville with this proposal to vacate any of these geographic areas. And so the one I wanted to talk to you about today is, as you can see in your memo, the subject property is located along Foxglove Drive, just west of Shiloh Drive, and this is a part of recently improved lots numbers 13 through 19 of the Meadowfield subdivision, which these improvements were filed of record in June of 2014 associated with the Crane Hyundai auto dealership there, along with the Planning Commission approval on May 2014 of LSD 14-4640. Conditions of approval with that approved plan were to preserve approximately 0.84 acres within this tree preservation area, and it's significant to note that this area preserved was set up with the intention to meet not only the tree preservation requirements of the recently constructed dealership, but also future development to occur on the remainder of the lots there to the west of the existing facility. At the time of that LSD approval, the applicant actually proposed to staff the amount of canopy that they felt could be preserved on site to meet their tree preservation requirements. They met the requirements through a variety of options, actually. This portion of land was preserved, mitigation trees were planted, and payment was made into the tree escrow account as well. This easement plat being discussed was recorded at the county courthouse on June 27th of 2014, and the owner representative, Chris Crane, did sign this easement plat on June 25th of 2014. Recently, in September of 2015, consultants met with me to discuss proposed development plans for these lots to the west of the existing Hyundai dealership, finding that the proposed site plan actually encroached on this protected tree preservation area. I provided them with a copy of the easement plat that had been recently signed, and suggested verbally a couple different suggestions on how to work within the footprint, reminding them that their mitigation and preservation needs for this future development were actually met if they would work within this area. However, they feel with, of course, this application that they're now not able to design within that footprint that was decided or that was allowed in 2014 with the LSD. With the proposal to vacate, the applicant is proposing vacation of approximately 5,300 square feet of a 30-plus thousand square foot acre tree preservation area. And their proposal in lieu of that vacation is to plant at 1.5 times the amount that would typically be required for mitigation of the square footage per code. They have not suggested where those trees will be planted, nor have I seen a plan of that. And staff's recommending denial of this request through a number of determinations. I'll just hit on a couple of highlights again. This area requested was actually required through the 2014 LSD approval that was made. According to the principles of 167, preservation shall be our first, best, and standard approach. And of course, establishment of new 2-inch caliper trees in lieu of the mature, in staff's opinion, is not preferable to the preservation of this existing canopy that's already in place. And finally, it's just unclear with this submittal that we've received where all these trees will be planted.
So you don't have room on site, right?
That's correct. There's not, doesn't appear adequate space to establish these on the site with the proposed footprint, and so just still sort of a lack of planning for how this would happen or how this would be handled. And be happy to answer any questions that you guys might have.
What questions do we have? Okay. All right. Okay, number 3. Resolution to express the City Council's intent to participate in cooperative regional efforts to evaluate the potential cost savings and environmental benefits that may be available to the City of Fayetteville through the formation of a Northwest Arkansas multi-jurisdictional Water Quality Compliance Association. Tim?
Thank you, Mayor. Earlier this year, the legislature passed Act 335, which to allow a market-based approach to achieve water quality standards. It provides possible efficiency and cost savings by having point source dischargers look at the trading of pollutants within the same watershed. In its simplest form, it allows to create voluntary associations to look at the net limits of pollutants. For example, let's say in the watershed you had 10 wastewater treatment plants that all had a limit of 1 milligram per liter of a pollutant. And one of those dischargers was discharging a 2, but the other 9 were discharging a net of 8, then there would not be enforcement action because of that nutrient trading. Of course, it's in its very early stages, and it still has to be a regulation developed by ADEQ. But what this is asking is for the mayor or his designee to look into the possibility of forming a formal organization. It will be with Springdale, Rogers, and Bentonville, and to look at the benefits of nutrient trading and how it can affect our watershed. And if there's any formalization, there will be a contract, and that will actually come back to the city council for approval. It would come back to all the city councils of the jurisdictional group. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
What questions do we have on that?
Mayor, just a comment. Originally, when you talk about adding a charge to my water bill and everybody else's water bill, my little antennas go up, and I'm thinking, but after some reflection, it sounds like a good idea to me if we cooperate together with the other cities. And I like the idea of a market-based approach where we can trade. And if we can be super efficient and super effective with our water treatment facilities, maybe we can find some economic advantage for our people, because maybe Springdale doesn't do such a good job, or maybe Rogers doesn't do such a good job.
We do the best.
Well, I'm under that impression.
Well, we have to.
Okay. Well, and for those who may be looking outside of this room, I'm not saying that Rogers and Springdale do a bad job. Okay. They're not getting hot water. I think it's good for competition. I think it's good for marketplace forces to help mitigate adverse effects of our wastewater. So I support it, even though it may add another charge to my water bill.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Number 4, an ordinance.
How would it add another charge to the water bill? What are you getting at there? I mean, we don't know.
We don't know that yet, but that was a potential. And that's what made my little antennas go up.
If anything, I think it protects us.
I think it would hopefully do that. We might see some sort of bill, though, from the Beaver Lake Water Authority, or they're looking at potentially assessing us something, I think, aren't they?
Yes.
You'll remember this nutrient trading legislation was originally brought because we were doing a lot of projects that were improving the watershed that were not point source related. And so to spend $250,000 to get benefits, say, in the White River, rather than spending $20 million at a plant that only moved the barometer slightly for a mineral of phosphorus, was a much more appealing use of both the ratepayers' money and the utility. So that legislation passed. Those regulations are forming. The reason we think it's important for this group to form as an alliance is, one, it was the sponsor of this legislation to identify projects where that can be done and where this nutrient trading benefits our region as a whole.
And when we talk about these projects that Don just mentioned, we're talking about looking at getting offsets or credits ahead of time when we do streamside restoration or
Yes.
project, Lake Sequoia dredging. And so Northwest Arkansas wants a seat at the table as these regulations are being formed, so we can have a voice and try to have some influence.
Okay, anything else? All right, number 4, an ordinance to waive the requirements of formal competitive bidding to authorize the purchase of 12 Trimble Ranger handheld water meter reading devices manufactured by Badger Meters Incorporated from Hennard Utility Products Incorporated in the amount of $51,725 plus applicable taxes for use by the Utilities Department. Tim?
Thank you, Mayor. The metering department for the city uses handheld readers to record the meter readings of the 40,000 meters that we have across the city. We typically replace these every 10 to 12 years, just because of technology changes. The reason that we're asking for the bid waiver is we need some readers that sync with our Badger meters. And to do that, we've got to have these certain type of meter readers. It's the same frequency, and it's also putting us in a position to go into smart water technology in the next few years, and this is really the first stage of doing it.
Okay, what questions do we have for Tim on this? Has it been through the Water Sewer Committee, Mark?
Yes, we discussed it. We did not have a quorum, but
Oh, okay.
we did have discussion on all of these items, including the previous one.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have asked you. I
Yeah.
apologize.
No, not at all. I think it's important to know that there was total transparency and a lot of information traded.
Okay. So the meters have been looked at. What questions do we have? Trey? All right. Number 5, resolution award bid number 15-51, and authorize the contract with Crossland Heavy Contractors Incorporated in the amount of $1,725,071.42 for the construction of the Maple Street and Lafayette Street Bridge Rehabilitation Project, to approve a project contingency in the amount of $172,507.14, and to approve a budget adjustment. Chris?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is a project that's been in the bond program since the very beginning, 2006. The voters approved work on these two bridges. 2011, we actually received $1 million of federal aid funding and proceeded with the formal design. We've been working since then to try to get the project design completed and get bids that we could live with. We took bids earlier in the year. It was about a $3 million bid, and that was too much. That was not a good bid. We rejected those, rebid the project, and now have a bid that we are ready to present for approval. Crossland Heavy, $1.725 million. We had a second bidder, Gibson Associates, at about I believe they're $1.8 million. So we know that we have a good bid here because we have two bidders who are relatively close together. So we are recommending this project move forward and the bids be approved. The funding for the project, as I noted, we do have federal aid funding. We spent some of the federal aid on design, so we've got about $776,000 in federal aid funding proposed to be used for the project. The remaining funds will come from city funds, about $475,000 from a capital improvement project that we have for bridge cost-sharing projects, and then the remaining $645,000 from the bond program. I'll answer any questions.
What questions do we have?
I just want to add, this project was originally 100% funded from bond revenues, so the opportunity to get those other funding sources reduced the project to the overall bond program.
Chris, after we spend this money, how much of the bond financing will be remaining? Just to finish the program, or we still have some spent?
Yeah, we still have several projects. We'll be receiving about $9 million in, middle of November?
Yeah, just sign.
And we've got about $6 million of additional funding, remaining funding from the previous bond issues. So there's about $15 million left. Those projects that we still have left besides this one include Old Wire Road, some additional pieces of Rupel Road, Zion Road, which is under design, and College Avenue sidewalks. Those are the major projects to be done.
And we think that the $15 million will be sufficient to fund those projects?
Well,
we had a whole plan. There are other projects beside these involved, that whole program has been put together through the Transportation Committee and approved before, so there should be enough to fund the maximum that we can for those programs that we did have identified at that point in time.
and I'll say, based on our estimates, yes, we do have enough funding. However, with the bid process, we don't know what those bids are gonna be. We have seen bids go up recently, so, as we continue to receive bids for projects, we'll have to, consider that, potentially make adjustments.
I want to add a statement on this. We added projects because initially in the early phases of the bond programs, projects came in under budget, and we had extra money, we were able to put additional projects on the table. All the while saying that as we get to the end of this, if bidding goes up and projects are higher, we'll have to reduce those that we added, because we added items beyond those that were originally voted on because we had the extra money. So while the money in there exists today for these projects, it's all contingent on them coming in at the estimates. If the estimates if they're over those estimates, then we'll be talking about which ones to reduce, and more than likely, it'll be the ones we added at the end.
Anything else?
I just want to thank Chris for his hard work to get this into a bid that can actually be
Yes.
accepted. The first bid was,
$2 million over.
so good work on that, Chris.
Thank you.
Very good work.
Can we put this on consent?
Well, it's a nice thing to talk about. Even though it costs a lot of money. But this project's been there from 2006, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked and talked and talked.
Talked it to death.
Yes.
Or to lie.
Yeah, there you go, thank you.
It's alive, that's right.
So what y'all want to do?
I'd like to leave it where it is, so we can talk about it, make sure the residents of the city know what's happening.
Okay. All right. Number 6, an ordinance to amend Chapter 177 Landscape Regulations of the Unified Development Code to adopt regulations prohibiting the installation of certain invasive plant species in new developments that require a landscape plan, preview, and approval by the Urban Forestry Division, and to make certain technical revisions.
Thank you, Mayor. Earlier this year, the City Council passed a resolution requesting that staff examine the need for preparing an ordinance to regulate or prohibit the use of certain invasive plant species in Fayetteville. The Sustainability and Resilience staff worked with the Urban Forestry Division to put together a group of stakeholders. We had a group of 13 stakeholders with very diverse backgrounds as nursery owners and managers, landscape architects, landscape installers, hobby gardeners, academic experts and botanists, naturalists and conservationists, and our city park managers and local citizens. We held 4 stakeholder meetings. The stakeholder group acknowledged that there is an invasive plant problem in Fayetteville, and that a small list of invasive plants are causing economic and environmental harm. Ultimately, that stakeholder group documented the need for an invasive plant species policy. We reviewed other peer communities that have invasive species policies and ordinances. We identified and prioritized the 18 plants that were specific to Fayetteville that we know cause problems within our city. The stakeholder group provided guidance and policy recommendations to city staff throughout this process, and then ultimately they reviewed and critiqued what staff proposed. So staff is proposing that we amend Chapter 177 Landscape Regulations, add those 18 identified invasive plants, and then prohibit these from being installed in any new development that requires a landscape plan that has to be reviewed and approved by the urban forester. So large-scale developments, that sort of development.
And large-scale developments are an acre or more, is that right?
Yeah, so large-scale developments, apartment complex subdivisions, anything that requires a landscape plan review.
But if I'm building my home on a 2-acre lot?
Single-family home is not included.
Even on a 2-acre lot, Mr. Williams?
No, that's not it would not be a large-scale development.
That's correct.
It's a commercial property generally.
We brought forward the draft of the changes, the amendments to Chapter 177 to the Urban Forestry Advisory Board October 14th. They forwarded the item to the City Council with a recommendation for approval. In your packet, you will see the Chapter 177, the changes highlighted that we're proposing. And then the second piece of this is an educational component. So we feel it's necessary to really have a robust educational component so that property owners, single-family property owners, perhaps, can identify invasive plants in their yard, can have the knowledge of how to remove them, and then also what to plant in their place. And so we're working kind of in tandem here. What we're asking for is approval of the landscape ordinance. And the educational component, we're working up. It'll go online. It'll actually go into the Urban Forestry's website, city website, and we'll work on educating the public then on how to eradicate these things from your own yard. So with that, if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer those.
Questions, ma'am? Yes.
What are the teeth in the ordinance? Suppose I'm a developer and I plant 6 of the 18 prohibited items. I pay a fine, I go to jail. What happens?
Well, the Urban Forestry Division signs off on projects, and so they would work with the property owner. If those plants were installed, the certificate of occupancy would not be issued until those plants were removed and appropriate plant material was planted in its place.
Okay, what happens after the developer stage and the individual lots and the subdivision are sold to individual homeowners? Homemaker goes out and plants one of the 18. Doesn't matter.
Right, they can do that.
That's
so
correct.
We can still end up, even with these regulations, we can still end up with your invasive so-called plants.
That's correct.
We've got some we're not going to get rid of in town that are just too tough. Yeah.
What about those billy goats? Can't we hire the billy goats?
They're too expensive for some of us, John.
But they eat good plants too, John.
That's true, they do.
Yeah, we're trying to find a sweet spot in terms of how can we get the education out there, the knowledge out there, and then how can we make sure that the stuff that comes through the review process that we have control over now, we can make sure that that stuff isn't being planted. And so it's not in terms of workload, it's not an increase in workload on urban forestry staff. They're reviewing these plans anyway. The landscape architects are identifying what the ground cover is, what kind of tree they're planting. So it's just going through and checking the box.
Is there anything in the proposed ordinance that will make it illegal for a retailer to sell one of the 18 prohibited?
No.
Okay. So the retailers are protected.
Right.
That's correct.
I think education is your best bill.
We do that too.
Yeah. Get consumers to not buy them.
We do that too.
You don't want them.
Any other questions on that? All right.
Thank you.
Number 7, a resolution authorizing the destruction of certain records shown on the attached affidavits pursuant to relevant code sections of the Arkansas Code and dated related to maintenance and destruction of county court and other records. Who has that?
I do.
Oh, Sandra.
From time to time, the city has to go through and destroy records that are either archived electronically or no longer needed according to our record retention plan, and it's time to do that. One reason is because we're losing our storage space, and so we're having to reduce the number of records that we have, and we've gotten a lot of these records scanned into our EDMS. So we'll be asking one of you city council members to come and witness our destruction of records.
And it's the destruction of the paper records. We still will have
Yes.
electronic records.
Yes, just
These are
paper.
kind of like invasive records we're trying to...
I think billy goats eat paper too.
Yeah, we just put a goat in there.
I think we do need to be very clear that when we maintain records forever,
Yeah.
there is a cost to that, not only in terms of the retention of the record, but just the fact that we're only required to keep certain things for certain time periods by law, and the longer we keep it, the more we have to provide when we get these inquiries, which just takes more time to pull the record. So we've asked the clerk to make sure that we're complying with all state requirements. There is a record retention policy, and the policy requires that when we're going to destroy something that's beyond that period of time, that we bring it to the council. And that's what's happening today.
And if you have a record that's 50 years or older, you cannot destroy it. And
You gotta
so-
kill them at 49, man.
So you want to make sure that you do not maintain those records too long, especially if you don't need them, you've got them stored electronically.
Sandra, is it true that we have most of these records that we're gonna be destroying already scanned in and an electronic version?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Or they're past their retention period, but most of them are scanned in and saved.
I mean, these days, when you're researching for documents, it's a lot easier to retrieve an electronic
No, no
document
question about it.
Yeah,
than a paper document.
Right.
yeah.
My office shreds paper a day old as soon as we get it scanned in. And we know we've got a scanned copy. It's secure.
We probably can't do that as a government, but it does make, yet.
I wish we
Yeah.
could.
But in the future, it might
I
actually
knew
be where we
somebody
can
was
do
gonna say
that, but so far, the state law does not allow us to do that.
Yeah, state law requires us to keep the
Yes,
records.
yes, we're not shredding any documents. They don't need to be shredded.
Can we put this on consent?
Yeah, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be, except Sandra's gonna be there the whole meeting.
You know, if we could save 30 seconds of that.
I agree, I agree.
All right, we'll put that on consent. Okay. We don't have any walk-ons or anything?
Oh,
Oh,
we
Paul,
got
yes,
it.
Paul has,
Presentation,
oh,
that everybody
A
would
walk-on
be
by Paul.
breathlessly awaiting my sales tax report.
yes, 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 yes.
Last week, we did in fact receive the sales tax report, and these were sales tax collected in August, and I was very pleased, as we all should be. We were up 4.87
Yes, we were.
compared to last year for the month of August. Springdale was roughly flat, and if we remember, Springdale had been getting very, very large gains. They were roughly flat. Rogers was up about 5%, and again, this is August sales, and what I would attribute that to is this was probably back-to-school type shopping, and people frequented Rogers and the mall up there, and our mall and our shopping areas here more than was available in Springdale for that period. However, I'm very happy that we were up 5%. Now, if we look at this year to date, we're up about 5% compared to budget. Still, I do think that's going to level off a little bit toward the end of the year. This is the end of the quarter, so we still have 3 months to go. We have September, which we're going to look at, and that, of course, is bike blues and barbecues that we're going up against. October and November last year were very, very strong months.
No, they were.
They were up into like the 7%.
Yeah, they were.
Increase, and we're going to have a real difficult time, I believe, beating those numbers. That's why my forecast at the end of the year, what I have forecast predicated the budget on, was about 4% increase at that point in time. So I think we're going to tail off a little bit. I'd rather be conservative on that going forward than
We have great confidence.
predicate a budget that is that I would overestimate in, we'll say. So we've taken a conservative approach to that. I want to stick by that, but I'm very, very pleased at how we're doing so far. These are the strongest sales tax numbers I've seen
Yeah.
since I've been here at the
That's for
city.
sure.
The strongest since the
We're
90s,
happy.
when we had some.
I think we went back and it's roughly the late 90s, early 2000 since we've seen percentages this high. And of course, percentages alone are a little misleading because you got to talk about the total dollars. And as the total dollars continue to increase, it's going to be more difficult to continue to compound percentage-wise the increases. But I'm very happy. I'm sure everybody here is very happy what this year looked like.
Good
But
year.
being the pessimist I am, it's not going to go on forever. We need to prepare for the future. So I think we're in a good position for that. I think we're in a position to cut back if we have to. I think we can stand some financial strain if in fact we get. I hope we don't see that. And I think we're, like I said, positioned to go either direction.
Well, Paul, it's not pessimism put away for a rainy day. That's just wisdom.
It is not, John.
Okay.
As you're being a certified public accountant, as I am myself, we are trained to be conservative and to look to that eventuality, and we always kind of keep our eyes there.
Okay. Thank you, Paul. Anything else?
Remind you of a special meeting on Friday.
Yes, we do. Special it will be.
5:30.
5:30.
downstairs.
Yep.
Good time will be had by all.
It will. I look forward to the discussion. Thank you all, we're adjourned.